a part of the responsibility. In terms of contact point, you know, and you can start in a very simple manner. This doesn't have to be over-engineered or complex operation and so on. This is just like your emergency service, 911 or 119 or 611 or whatever it is in your country. When something happens, who do I call? It's as simple as that. The SIRT is for security incidents. The SIRT is that entity. And whether you contact them via email, telephone, fax, you know, however, basically the SIRT is the place that, that everyone goes to. Everyone meaning commercial, government, you know, utilities, NGOs, and so on. The SIRT that's designated for that region or for that particular constituents, route everything there. Feedback on reported incidents. So something happens, the SIRT is responsible for saying, this is what happened, these are the details, here is the nature of the threat, the extent of the threat, severity, recommendations on what can be done. The SIRT does that. Hands-on support, and this is where we get into the actual response to an incident, which could be as things like taking infected machines offline, taking infected systems offline, increasing the level of firewalling, you know, whatever it may be. When you start to get denial of service and so on, protecting those particular assets. The SIRT does that and usually works through the problem, including identifying when it came from, the original source of it, and restoring services. SIRT is responsible for tracking trends. So some of those things we saw earlier with the types of attacks, the number of attacks, where they're coming from. SIRT might make recommendations on which service providers to use because of their relative levels of vulnerability to new attacks and the trending of certain attacks. And big part of it is that a SIRT, by definition, is supposed to be highly collaborative. We want them to always be talking to other SIRTs so that the response to attacks, the response to incidents can be coordinated. Which is one thing that we have to consider as we talk about having Caribbean-wide SIRT or Caribbean-wide SIRT operations, that even when we do establish, if we do establish SIRTs in individual countries, it's highly unlikely that there's no point in that SIRT operating in isolation of anyone else. It has to talk to someone else. So in all likelihood, something that affects Jamaica would probably also affect Barbados, and there's going to be a need to coordinate with that. Different types of SIRTs and we touched on this earlier, can be internal within a company, say a public entity, private company, can be national, can be a coordination center for other SIRTs, which is where a regional SIRT might fall. For example, US SIRT is a huge coordination center for other SIRTs around the US. Can be an analysis center, vendor team, or it could be completely outsourced. And these are just different possible models of doing the same function with different scopes. All right, I think this is our last slide before we get into the certain practical aspects of it and into the panel discussion later. Just the issues for establishing a SIRT. Who are the stakeholders that has to be identified? You have government, businesses, civil society, security apparatus. What are the supporting systems? Legal framework, the education system. That's actually one big consideration. You want to be able to groom your university graduates, your college graduates in this particular area. We don't want everyone in multimedia and the ability to do mashups and websites and so on. You also need your network operators, your core networking engineers